Okay, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. We are back. We today are going to continue going through the Torah portion. We're actually going to deal with two chapters today. We'll read through chapter 33. And we will kind of get more in depth into chapter 34 and see what types of things we can gain from the portion this week. We're going to just go ahead and just get right to it. We're going to go to Genesis, Bereshit, chapter 33. Let's see, we'll read through to read chapter 33 all the way through 34 verse 1. Stop at after verse 1 of the next chapter. That's what we'll do.
No, so just read this whole chapter basically.
Plus the first verse of the next chapter. Yeah. Let me pull this up. Oh, wait a second. Okay, there we go.
All right, Genesis 33, verse 1. And Jacob lifted his eyes and looked and saw Esau coming with him 400 men. And he divided the children among Leah and Rachel and the two female servants. And he put the female servants and their children in front, and Leah and her children behind, and Rachel and Joseph last. And he put himself passed over before them and bowed himself to the ground 7 times until he came near to his brother. And Esau ran to meet him and embraced him and fell on his neck and kissed him, and they wept. And he lifted up his eyes and he saw the women and children and said, "Who are these with you?" And he said, "The children with whom Elohim has favored your servant." Then the female servants came near, they and their children, and bowed themselves. And Leah also came near with her children, and they bowed themselves. And Joseph and Rachel came near, and they bowed themselves. And Esau said, "What do you mean by all this company which I met?" And he said, "To find favor in the eyes of my master." But Esau said, "I have enough, my brother. Let what you have remain yours." And Jacob said, "No, please. If I have found favor in your eyes, then receive my present from my hand, because I have seen your face like seeing the face of Elohim, and you were pleased with me. Please take my blessing that is brought to you, because Elohim has favored me, and because I have all I need." And he urged, and he took it. And he said, "Let us depart and go, and let me go before you." But he said to him, "My master knows that the children are weak, and the flocks of the herds which are nursing are with me. And if the men should drive them hard one day, all the flock shall die. Please let my master go before his servant, and let me lead on slowly according to the pace of the livestock that go before me, and according to the pace of the children, until I come to my master in Mount Seir, or in Seir." And Esau said, "Please let me leave with you some of the people who are with me." But he said, why this? Let me find favor in the eyes of my master." And Esau returned that day on his way to Seir. And Jacob set out to Sukkoth and built himself a house and made booths for his livestock. That is why the name of the place is called Sukkoth. And Jacob came safely to the city of Shechem, which is the land of Canaan, when he came from Paddan Aram, and he pitched his tent before the city, and he brought the portion of the field where he had pitched his tent from the children of Hamor, Shechem's father, for 100 uh, quitis, quitis, quit. I can't say it. I don't know what. It's like a tongue twister. Casita, casitas. Uh, It says, when he set up a slaughter place there, they called it Eloi Yisrael. Uh, Genesis 34:1. And Dinah, the daughter of Leah, whom she had born to Jacob, went out to see the daughters of the land.
Okay, very good. So, you remember we talked the last week about the idea of Yaakov going out to meet with his brother. He has separated from those years ago whenever he went and whenever he received the blessing from his father that was his brother's blessing, and knowing that his that Esau fell out with him, he left out. He was like on the run, and he uh, being on the run, met up with Laban and was with his, did what he had to do all of those years with, gaining his wives and his maid servants and children and all these things. He basically had like a whole lifetime away, but he had to return back to the land of his fathers, and he knew to do that he would have to go and meet with his brother. We talked about how he whether he sent angels or sent messengers, he you know had to smooth out the path and prepare the way that he was going beforehand. And so when we see the actual meeting over here in this chapter, whatever it was that he did worked, because we know that Esau definitely, um, you know, was hostile towards him, um, and he was able to meet with him. People talk about the meeting. I've heard people talk about this thing and literally talk about the kiss of Esau as being this kind of a fake kind of a thing that happened and all of this. But whatever the case may be, whatever it was, whether it was genuine or not with Esau, um, there wasn't any problems. He didn't have to worry about being killed. There wasn't any battles to be fought or whatever. Everything went according to plan. And so we see that he settles in. He settles in this land that is by Shechem. And then that's where we pick up the story over here, and we see that it begins in chapter 34. Let me pull this up real quick. It begins over here with Dinah. It says the daughter of Leah went out to see the daughters of the land. And so when we look at this, it's interesting, as we begin to look at this thing, this thing that goes on with Dinah. There's various thoughts about Dinah's age at this time. But whatever the case may be, she must have been old enough to just go out, because she went out, and she went to see the, as it says, the daughters of the land. I wanted to look at some couple couple commentaries of that talk about this a little bit. Must be some ice melting or something. Let me pull this up. Make this a little bigger. Let's see a little better. Okay. All right, let's look at this couple of commentaries. Okay, dealing with the idea of Dinah, who went out to see the daughters of the land. Um, this was the land of Canaan, to visit them and to contract an acquaintance with them. You know, they're saying this was her goal here, to visit the land, because they were outside of the land. And she apparently wanted to go and make acquaintance. She wanted to see about these daughters of the land. This commentator here says, she having no sisters to converse with at home, it might be a temptation to her to go abroad. According to Targum of Jonathan, she went to see the manners, customs, and fashions of the women in that country, to learn them. As the Septuagint version renders the word, or to see their habit and dress, and how they ornamented themselves. So we see these other versions, Septuagint namely, talking about just a little more in depth in terms of what Dina's actually doing, in like the purpose, I guess, of this journey to go and see about these peoples over here, these ladies of Shechem. Josephus observes, and who also says it was a festival day at Shechem, and therefore very probably many of the young women of the country round about might have come thither on that occasion, and who, being dressed in their best clothes, will give Dinah a good opportunity of seeing and observing their fashions, and which with the diversions of the season and shows to be seen, allured Dinah to go out of her mother's house into the city to gratify her curiosity. And so, these are some thoughts of some Josephus, of course, being, this contemporary of Yeshua's time. When you look at some of his accounts, it's almost as if he has like a parallel telling of the Bible. You go back and look at things with Josephus, you could almost kind of follow through the Torah through looking at Josephus. He has kind of these, I don't know if they're alternative thoughts, but he kind of gives some insight on the scriptures as you go through. But because the scripture doesn't tell us why she's going over there, it just says that she does. We can only assume you know what the meaning, the reason behind what she was doing is, and we could think about things the way that that we think about things. Young people indeed are curious about things. We're social beings. We kind of naturally desire kind of to be with other human beings, right? We like that. And so, and young people, I would say especially. So it's not kind of far fetched to kind of think of the fact that her, especially being in close proximity with this town, Shechem, this city over here, that she would want to go out and see what's going on with it. But we want to continue and see, um, you know, what happens. So let's look at the next verse. Let me pull this up. Verse 2. Read for us verse 2.
And Shechem, son of Hamor, the Hivites, is that still the Hittite?
Well, Hivite.
Yeah, the Hivite, okay. Prince of the land saw her and took her and lay with her and humbled her.
Okay, so this is what happens now. She goes over into this land to, quote unquote, see the daughters of the land. And while she's there, first of all, when we look at the verse 1, it really seems as if she's taking this kind of a journey just on her own. She's going out adventuring on her own, no protection granted her. She just goes. I don't know if she sneaks away, if people knew that she was gone or whatever. But we see in verse 2, I want to kind of talk about these things that happen with her, right? It says that we can look at these 4 things that happen in terms of this Hivite, Hamor the Hivite, this prince in the land. It says that he saw her and took her. 3, he lay with her. And 4, he humbled her. So if we look, let's see here. If we look at here, it says that first of all, he saw her. So this word in the Hebrew is ra'ah, which literally talks about the idea of seeing. I talked about this word many times because when we think about this word that is translated as see, we can also incorporate the idea of experiencing a thing with the in the word, because of the fact that this word ra'ah is also spelled the same in everything an actual bird of prey, which has this excellent sense of vision. And we know that these birds of prey who are like way up flying are able to look down and see their prey and then swoop down and experience it. So when we think about Ra'ah, it's not just looking at it, but it's kind of also dealing with, experiencing the thing that you're looking at, right? So we see that this is going on here with the prince, right? He saw her, but not only did he see her and at least in his mind want to experience her, but then it says he goes and experiences her, right? He lays with her. So he saw her and then he goes and lie down with her. This word shakab, which means to lie down for rest, for sexual connection, decease, right? It has these different thoughts over here, but in the context, this over here is definitely dealing with this second aspect over here, as far as having intimate relations, right? So that's dealt with. right? The idea that he saw her. Oh, wait, I skipped one, right? He took her and laid her. So this one over here, he took her. This is another one. This is lakak, which is accept, bring by, carry away, drawn, fetch, get, enfold, mingle. An interesting place where we see this word took is if we look at, let me pull up Exodus. If we pull up Exodus 6, 6 and 7. Read Exodus 6 and 7 there.
So and shall take you
Wait. 6. I meant to say verse 6 and verse 7.
Say therefore to the children of Israel, I am Yahweh, and I shall bring you out from under the burdens of the Mizrahites, and shall deliver you from their enslaving, and shall redeem you with an outstretched arm and with great judgments, and shall take you as my people, and I shall be your Elohim, and you shall know that I am Elohim, Yahweh your Elohim, who is bringing you out from under the burdens of the Mizrahites.
Okay, so when we see this over here where it talks about the Most High taking Israel as his people, so there is a thought kind of possession that's going on, more than just like somebody like taking somebody to the store, like carrying somebody somewhere. We look at how it's used over here, um, where the connection here with what the Most High is doing. We talked about, you talk about this as dealing with these four aspects of redemption, and this being redeemed in terms of from a physical, from a mental, from a spiritual standpoint, and also the actual act of redeeming, which includes the price or the buying back thing. So when we think about this idea of the Most High taking uh Israel as his people, right? This is kind of a serious kind of a situation that's going on, a removal of, being in Egypt or being owned by Pharaoh and now becoming owned by the Most High, right? All of that's kind of incorporated in what's going on when the Most High takes you as my people. And so when we go back and look at this, um, we go back and look at what's going on over here with Hamor, the Hivite, who saw her and took her. He took hold of her. He attempted, I guess, to possess her, um, and he lay with her, right? And so we have all of these things over here in terms of him seeing her, desiring to experience her, him actually taking her, um, him actually laying with her, and it says that he humbled her. He humbled her, which is anah. The word there is anah, which, let's look at that word, humbled. The King James, the King James translates that as defiled. Hold on. Yeah, that's the King James that says defiled. This over here, anah, which is to The idea of looking down or browbeating, to depress literally, figuratively, to abase, afflict. When we talk about afflicting our souls, we talk about this word anah. I'm saying when we deal with the idea of Yom Kippur, when we're commanded to afflict our souls, that word is anah, right? And so when we think about this, and so when we think about the idea of what we are to be doing to our souls, um, forbidding our soul, kind of bringing our soul into subjection, denying our soul. I'm saying in terms of Yom Kippur, all of that is what this prince over here is dealing with in terms of Dina. And so there's kind of this forbidding that's going on, that's all wrapped up in this seeing and taking and lying, and humbling. Also, let's look at Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy, another example where we see this word being humble. 22 and 23. Read 23 and 24 there.
Okay, when a girl who is a maiden is engaged to a husband, and the man finds her in the city and lies with her, then you shall bring them both out to the gate of the city, and shall stone them to death with stones. The girl because she did not cry out in the city, and the man because he has come on his neighbor's wife. Thus you shall purge the evil from your midst.
Okay, that's the word there, humbled, Anah, his neighbor's wife. And so we can think about this in a few ways, because it could have said just um, because he laid with his neighbor's wife. It could have said that. But I think that when we have this word humbled here, because it's dealing with it's qualifying, I think, the laying, right? It's qualifying, because it already did say up here in 23 that a man finds her in the city and lies with her up there. So 23, let's see, 23 and lie with her. Which word is that? Shakab. That's the lie with, right? So that's an aspect of it over there in terms of this idea of lying with. But as a result of what's going on, I think we have this extra element of this anah thing that's not necessarily it's not that say that it's synonymous with the lying, but the consequence, the circumstances and situations that's brought about in the lying makes it a humbling, right? So we can look at this and say this over here is kind of like a rape situation in Deuteronomy 22 and 23 and 24, and they're both being punished because of the fact that it's in the city and she didn't cry out. But if she was in the countryside, the example that's given, the same situation, if she's in the countryside, then only the man is stoned. But over here again, we see this word humbling, and we can I identify this action, this thing that's going on, really as rape. So if we go back over here to Genesis and see what's going on over here, when we see again these four things that's going on, this idea of the seeing and the taking and the laying and the humbling, all of these things together, this is kind of a very, very serious kind of a situation that she's gotten herself into. She's kidnapped. She got what's this thing that these people are doing? These ladies and young girls is coming up missing and stuff. It's
Oh yeah.
I forget the word that they was using. The sex trafficking thing that
Yeah,
these people are doing.
trafficking.
Kidnapping these people.
Yeah.
Dina over here, she goes out here and goes to see about these people, these Hivites, and just becomes taken by this prince of Shechem. Let's read on. See what. Let's read 3 and 4, verses 3 and 4.
And his being clung to Dinah, the daughter of Yoked. He loved the girl and spoke kindly to the girl. It says, and Shechem took to his father Hamor, saying, "Take this girl for me for a wife."
Okay, very good. So when we look at this, right? So I we look at this thing. There's nothing when we look at these verses over here that talks about this idea of this kind of being a mutual situation. It doesn't talk about Dina and her thoughts or feelings about the thing. It just talks about Hamor, Hamor, and how he feels about the situation, which he starts off all wrong from the beginning, where he just goes and just takes the Dina and and has his way with her. It says that he loves the girl. However, it says nothing about her love for him. Right? When we look at this thing, we see it says that his being, his soul clung to her. We see this word used, this word clung. We see this word used another place. The scriptures. Let's see. What's that verse 24 say right there?
For this cause, a man shall leave his father and mother and cleave to his wife, and they shall become one flesh.
Okay, so when we look at this over here, where the Mosai talks about the idea of a man and a woman, his wife, and how he is to cleave to his wife. That's the same word over here that we this dabak that's going on with Hamar towards Dina. This idea of clinging or adhering to, which to me, when I think about this, as far as I'm concerned, it's kind of because of the fact that this is inordinate. It seems kind of demented a little bit to me when you think about this, and how he's doing this thing. He goes and takes this young girl and talks about, after he took her, he goes to his father, the king of this land, and he's like, now I want to I want to make this thing right after the fact, right? It's backwards. So when we think about, I was looking at some of the what people have to say about these these things over here, especially verse 3, where it talks about the fact that he spoke kindly to her. It just made me think about, I don't know why it made me think about Hannibal Lecter, where, the Silence of the Lambs guy. Oh, you never saw that?
I always heard about it.
He's like this crazy guy, Hannibal Lecter, right? Where he would sit there and do all of this crazy stuff to people, torture, really, what he was doing. But the way the way that he's doing it is kind of this and doing it in this demented type of a way where he's literally talking kindly to these people as he's doing this terrible stuff to them. And it's the same kind of a thing when we see over here um with this guy over here from Shechem, Hamor, in his dealings with Dinah, as where he knows that he's done this thing inordinately, and I guess he wants to kind of smooth it over by talking about this idea of him speaking kindly to her. Um, to me, it seems strange that he even cares to go and do any of this stuff after the fact. He's already, taken her. Again, we think about the idea of taking. He's already took her. He's taking her as kind of a possession. It's almost like he captures her. Why is he trying to go and kind of is this something that he's doing out of ignorance? I don't know. Is it something that he's is he trying to fix a messed up situation? I don't know. It's hard to really know what his intentions are. Um and also the thing that I think about is the fact that these people are kind of the I feel like he's in a position where he really doesn't have to go through any of the things. When we think about like the situation that happened with Sarah and Abraham, and him giving Sarah away to the king of the land at the time. um when they go through, and they see they took who they wanted to take, right? It was kind of a thing that happened where they knew that these kings of this land, if they saw their women, that they would just take them. And so when we look over here with Hamor, with Hamor over here, the Shechemite, he basically did the same thing, but then he's taking this extra step where he wants to, I guess, I don't know if he wants to fix it or whatever, but I don't know how you fix this thing that he's actually done, at this time, with the way that he did it. And so when we look over here at, if we keep on going down, if we see, let's look at 5 and 6. What does that say over there? Back in Genesis 34, verse 5 and 6.
Jacob heard that he had defiled Dinah, his daughter, and his sons with his livestock in the field. So Jacob kept silent until they came. And Hamor, the father of Shechem, went out to Jacob to speak with him.
Okay, so I don't know, because again, doesn't talk about it. Does he already know? Does he already know who she is? Or maybe he asked her, who she is to go and find out. That we don't know. But when we do look at this, we see that what they're calling this, let's see. What they're calling this is Tame. So they're not even they understanding how this thing is classified in terms of this relationship that has transpired between this prince and Dina. And inspiration is only calling this thing defilement, right? Whether it's just a simple act, whether it's the way in which that it happened or what have you, they're calling this thing defilement. And so we look, but something that I find interesting over here is this: when we look, Yaakov, it says kept silent until they came, that being um his sons, um the brothers of uh Dina, which um one thought that I saw as I was looking at this was, when we think about different kind of family structures, when you had um men who had multiple wives, when you think about the full brothers of the daughters, were basically the ones that were kind of, we look in the scriptures talk about the blood avengers, or the kinsmen redeemers. um, you know when vengeance is to be taken, it's not always the father necessarily, but the full brothers of the sister. And so that kind of an idea makes sense when we think about that in Jacob's response, because I can just think about me. My response wouldn't be about peace at this time. It would be the exact opposite if that was my role and responsibility, unless it was a situation where that wasn't, where again, it's when we're on the outside, culturally speaking, looking into these other cultures, it's hard kind of to think about these things, because we're injecting our thoughts into what they're doing. So it's hard to say whether this is Jacob just having kind of this moment where he's just not being courageous, vigilant, about the situation, and he's just waiting to see what his young sons are willing to do about it, or like like some of the people say, based on their kind of research of this cultural thing, maybe it really is the role of the sons to go and do uh the whatever needs to be done in regards to this kind of a thing. But me, from the outside looking in, I'm not able to make that separation. All I see is a father and his daughter, and her being defiled, and um you know uh what's to be done about it. And so for me, when I look at this situation, I look at Yaakov, and I say, first of all, how did she get away, like, in the first place? How did she even get to the place where she's just like, I'm going to go? I don't know if she made the announcement or not. I'm going to go and see about the daughters of the land.
Mhm.
I mean, I know where mines are at all times.
Mm-hmm.
I remember a time, actually as a parent, I don't remember a time when I just was like, the kids would just go out. I remember when I used to just go out and it just be totally random, like I'm going out to play, and there's no kind of destination or anything talked about. But it really was different times. Um, where a community kind of was like a community. But when we think about their situation, they were this people outside of this land who was a different people, where they weren't kind of in a shared community experience. These were Canaanites over here. These were people that belonged to the seven forbidden nations. And so it wasn't a thing where, you just was going to say to dad or mom or whatever, all right, I'll see you in a little bit. I'm going down here to see about these Canaanites. Or it shouldn't have been. So I'm saying it's hard for me to kind of remove Jacob from kind of being culpable of what's going on over here. But something that's interesting that I saw over here, if we look at, if we go back a chapter, we go back into 33. Let's go back into 33 real quick. 33, because it gives us some added information. 33 and 18. Read 18 through 20.
And Yaakov came safely to the city of Shechem, which is the land of Canaan. When he came to Paddan Aram, he pitched a tent before the city. And he brought the portion of the field where he had pitched the tent, and the children of Haman, Shechem's father, for 100 kusha. And he had set up a slaughter place there, called it El Elo Yisrael.
Okay, so if we look at this verse over here, 18, it says, and he pitched his tent before the city, which, we can't, it's not really, that's not really that serious until we look at what this is really saying over here, right? If we look at this is panim, which is the face, or as part that turns the face. And when we talk about wanting the Most High to turn His face to us, this is what we're talking about as far as panim, right? And so when we look at what happened over here, he pitched his tent towards the face of the city, right? He turned his tent towards the face of the city. When we think about the idea of the Most High turning his face to us, it's more than kind of this directional kind of a thing. It's kind of like it's a relational kind of a thing, right? It's more than just dealing with the idea of someone kind of turning and looking at you. All right. And so we can see even at that, looking at Dina, and the fact that when she wanted to go and see the daughters of the Lamb, she wanted to go and see about what was going on over there, because of the fact that they were fixed in such a way where they were looking upon this place. Think about if you're kind of off in the distance from this land, this young bustling land, and you're observing all of the things that are going on over there. it does kind of pique your curiosity to know, what's going on. And it's obviously inside of her, it formed this kind of a longing, a a natural desire for her to go over here and see. But to me, when I looked at this thing, when we think about the fact that, these people, who in fact sold him the land that he was on, um, you know, him being in this close proximity, um, and then also he has this slaughter place that he put there on it, um, which was El, the mighty El of Israel, right? So he has um, something kind of that is there to um, kind of point himself and his family to the Most High, but at the same time, you have this kind of this other option, which is this land that is, afar off, but not that far off. So I kind of think about it. Kind of made me think about kind of the garden. It kind of made me think about the Garden of Eden, right, where you have the tree of the knowledge of good and evil that's right there. And then you also have um, the tree of life that's just right there, where these things are kind of in close proximity to one another. Um, but it's necessary for you to actually choose the tree of life and not the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And so he has, this altar, this place where, he um, is able to, bring offerings to his Elohim. This place he calls the mighty Elohim of Israel, his people. And then you have this place that's, I think I'm hung up on this panim thing in terms of meaning, being in the face of, as if to say, he has this kind of his situation kind of fixed in the direction of this place, which obviously caused Dina to have her mind fixed, on this place, so much so that she goes, to see about what's going on over there. And she got there. I don't know how she got there. She snuck there, or she was allowed to go there. She got there, and nobody knew any better until it was too late. I guess there was no kind of provisions that was set up to keep her from getting there because she got there. And so, I feel like, it was his responsibility for her not to get there. And then, she got there anyway. And so when I think about the fact that Yaakov, when it talks about him being silent, um, again, we don't know necessarily what the situation was with them. I could just know, as far as what I would think, that as the father, his response should be more than just silence, because silence is really approval. If I don't have anything to say about it, I'm okay with it, I guess. Okay, so let's keep on going down here and see what else. Let's read down to from verse 7 down through 14. Let me pull that back up here. Verse 7.
And the sons of Jacob came in from the field when they heard it, and the men were grieved and very wroth because he had done a senseless deed in Israel by lying with Jacob's daughter, which should not uh, be done. And Hamor spoke to them, saying, "My son Shechem's being uh, lumpy being longs for your daughter. Please give her to him for a wife, and intermarry with us. Uh, give us your daughters, and take our daughters for yourself, and dwell with us, and let the land be before you. Dwell and move about in it, and have possessions in it." And Shechem said to her father and her brothers, "Let me find favor in your eyes, and whatever you say to me, I give. Ask of me a bride price, and a gift ever so high, and I give according to what you say to me. But give me the girl for a wife." But the sons of Jacob answered Shechem and Hamor, his father, and spoke with deceit, because he had defiled Dinah, their sister. And they said to them, "We are not able to do this matter, to give our sister to one who is uncircumcised, for that would be a reproach to us."
Okay, so when I look at this, there's to me, just from the very beginning, where Yaakov, he hears about it, and it just says Yaakov um went out to Yaakov to speak to Yaakov kept silent until they came. It just doesn't even have much to say about it. But when we see with the brothers, it says the men were grieved and very wroth because he had done this senseless deed in Israel. So the brothers, they're besides themselves. They just can't even. They just don't even know what's going on over here. This unspeakable thing has happened to their daughter. It says that there was wrath and grieved, like this is some serious things going on over here, all the way to the place where the they're trying to make their case to kind of I'll pay whatever I gotta pay, don't matter how high, whatever you say I'll give it. And they're just like, nah, like this isn't, we don't it's like Laban was like like, we don't do that over here.
Yeah.
Like, it's just a matter of fact, like that's not what we do. Like this,
Right.
what you're talking about, this thing is a reproach, it says to us. What's this? What's it? Is that? It's a disgrace,
Yeah.
right? This thing is just a shameful rebuke that he's even that he's talking about over here, in terms of this idea of marrying this Canaanite. And they're just opening up for all Canaanites, just a mixture all the way around, right?
Yeah.
Not only that, it's not as if they're talking about, let's just make this exception for for our situation that's going on here, but let's just let it be a free for all for everyone.
Come on
I want to go back. Let's go back over here. read this verse here, verse 1.
This is 28:1. Yitzchak called Yaakov and blessed him and commanded him and said to him, "Do not take a wife from the daughters of Canaan."
We haven't seen up until this place any kind of a revocation of this command that went forth in terms of Jacob that he received from his father. These people over here, these Hivites, you know, they're part of the Canaanites. They essentially are the daughters of Canaan. And so when we think about this idea of, you know, the fact that, you know, when we see where Isaac and Jacob, you know, they're going off into these lands to specifically find wives that are not of Canaan. And then when we see what goes on with over here with Dina, this kind of is just like it just it would just kind of erase the whole situation that they were trying to do in the whole first place. was would be to mix with this particular people. And it wasn't just like a one-time thing. Let's see, 24 and 37. What's that say?
It says that my master made me swear, saying, "Do not take a wife for my son from the daughters of the Canaanites, in whose land I dwell."
So, you know, over here we see this is where they're at. They're here already. Like this is where they are. But it's like they're making this special trip to go and find these people who are not connected to the Canaanites on purpose. So it's not even about just a proximity. Yeah, they're just right over there, but it doesn't matter. Right? He's still it's still this thing that is prohibited. Let's see, 27 and 46. 27 and 46. What's that say?
And Rivka said to Yitzchak, "I am disgusted with my life because of the daughters of Heth. If you could take some wife from the daughters of Heth, like these who are the daughters of the land, what is my life to me?"
Right. Okay, so Rivka, she's talking about, you know, she is just disgusted with her whole life because of these daughters of Heth. Who are they? Who are these people? These daughters of Heth. An aboriginal Canaanite. These are the people that were the Canaanites. Same people, right? Same people.
Canaanites must be nasty. I don't know, you know. They the undesirables out there.
Undesirables, right? And so these people, these people, these are the progenitors. These are the progenitors of the Canaanites. Oh, it says son of Canaan, the progenitor of the Hittites.
Terrible. Wow.
And so Rivka, you know, I don't know if she's over exaggerating or whatever. Like she's very serious about this, right?
I don't think she was. It must have been. I mean, it seemed like a theme. You know?
It's a running thing. Like your family don't mess with those people. Period.
That's like
we don't mess with them.
Yeah.
Like, and so again, when we look at this whole situation with Dina, where even if we say that this was kind of just totally consensual situation, which I don't believe that it was, even that in and of itself is a defilement based on the fact that who it was.
Yeah.
It's these people that in the eyes of the sons and daughters of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob were despicable. So I'm saying that I don't believe that this was. I believe that she was snatched up in a moment of her exploring her curiosity. She was not. She got seen by these people who wanted her, and they took her. But at the same time, when we look over here, um, you know, even if that wasn't the case, you still have the same result. In terms of this being this despicable defiling thing that happened, even if it was something that was consensual, and I don't think that it was. And so when we look over here, there's so many problems with this whole situation in terms of Dina, being attached to these people over here who were these Hivites. And so let's go on. We want to read some more because when we look over here and see the brothers are just not even with it. They're not having it, and they're saying, this thing that you're talking about, this thing is incomprehensible, all the way up until verse 15. So let's read in 15 what it says.
Only on this condition will we agree to you, if you become as we are, to have every male of you circumcised. Then we shall give our daughters to you, and take your daughters to us, and we shall dwell with you, and shall become one people. But if you do not listen to us and be circumcised, we shall take our daughter and go.
Okay, so the thing that they say when we look at these people, if your people conform to our culture and take on the sign of the covenant, then we could talk about something then. Which again, this sign of the covenant being this circumcision, right? Um, so when we think about that, now are we able to take the sign of the covenant without the covenant? Like, what are they asking of these people? Are they asking them just to take the sign of the covenant, or is the covenant going along with it? To me, my thoughts is that it's an all-inclusive kind of a thing. Like, you're taking the sign of this covenant is not just a sign, it's the actual covenant. It's the thing that goes along with it. It's not just like this symbol of it, but it's actually it. And so, they're saying to these people, if you're able to be conformed to the things that we're about, then we can be one people, it says. But if you can't listen to that and be circumcised, then you can't take our daughter, they say.
Mhm.
All right, let's keep reading some more because we want to get into some more of this. Read, let's see here. Just read down to the end from 18. Let's see, back from 18 down to the end
So, and their words pleased Hamor and Shechem, Hamor's son. And the young man did not delay to do this because he delighted in Jacob's daughter. Now he was more respected than all the household of his father. Hamor and Shechem, his son, came to the gate of the city and spoke with the men in their city, saying, These men are at peace with us, so let them dwell in the land and move uh, about in it. And see, the land is large enough for them. Let us take their daughters for us for wives, and let us give them our daughters. Only on this condition would the men agree to dwell with us to be one people, if every male among us is circumcised as they are circumcised. Their herds and their possessions and all their beasts, should they not be ours? Only let us agree with them and let them dwell with us. And all who went out of the gate of his city listened to Hamor and Shechem his son. Every man was circumcised. All who went out of the city of his gate and came to be on the third day when they were in pain, that two of the sons of Jacob, Shimon and Levi, Dinah's brothers, each took his sword and came boldly upon the city and killed all the males. And they killed Hamor and Shechem and his son with the edge of the sword, and took uh, Dinah from Shechem's house and went out. And the sons of Jacob came upon the slain and plundered the city because they had defiled their sister. Uh, they took their flocks and their herds and their donkeys and that which was in the city and that which was in the field and all their wealth and all their little ones and their wives they took captive and plundered all that was in the houses. Jacob said to Sherman and Levi, You have troubled me by making me a stench among the inhabitants of the land, among the Canaanites and the Perizzites, um, and I am few in number, and they shall gather themselves against me and shall strike me, and I shall be destroyed, my household and I.
Okay, so now when we look at this over here, we see that Simeon and Levi the whole time, this whole thing was just a plan to get vengeance for their sister, right? They never were planning on going ahead with this whole situation because probably because the fact that the thought process was probably already ingrained in them, along with the fact that their sister was defiled by
Mm-hmm.
these people.
Yeah.
Um, I'm gonna say it probably was a combination of the both of these things that caused them to go ahead and do what they did. They went and it's interesting that it's interesting the way that Jacob refers to their own self, and then you think about how the people of the land thought about him, where he thinks about his own self, which is like, we're just this small little family, and you caused all of these people to be kind of to have this ought against us.
Mm-hmm.
Like the small group should be fearful of the big group. But when you think about their response to the conforming thing, however big or small they was ready to do it in order to be part of whatever it was that Jacob had over there.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like a conflict of a situation. Like, was he big or not?
Yep.
Was he like great in all of his havings, or wasn't he like?
Mm-hmm.
That whole city was ready to just go ahead and be whatever he was.
Right.
what I There's a little bit of a discrepancy there. Like,
Yeah.
if he's just this small little group of this little family with his little sons and servants or whatever, why is this whole city ready to change their whole life to just and what daughters did he have?
Yeah, that's the one.
Just talk about the one.
Yeah.
So what was they even gaining from the situation? Really, all that they gain is the ability to be able to give their daughters to his sons.
Right.
Because there wasn't no reciprocation. They only had the one daughter anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So you have them willing, whatever, yeah, we'll do it. We'll get circumcised right now. Where is that? Let's do it. Mm-hmm. Where's the knives at? Right. But Jacob on the other end of that is like, look at what you've done. You caused all these people to turn against us, this little people. It seems as if Yaakov must have had some type of, I don't know, influence or whatever. They knew who he was. They knew who he was. They knew who she was, the daughter, to see her and go after her and capture her. It's like they was holding her for ransom almost, kind of to join families. Just like when we look at the whole thing with Pinchas, with the whole thing with him joining with the princes of that nation, not him, but the people who he kills, right? Was like these princes of the nation, and you have this other people that's joining in the sight of the people, where you have these kind of people who are like in these high places in the families in order to join the nations together. Right. And so it's almost as if they had this grand scheme to get together with the daughter of Yaakov, so that they can have this quote unquote small group of people be joined in to what they were doing, which I guess was brilliant on their part. But when you think about just the perspectives, when you look at what they have to say about it and what Yaakov has to say about it, is he humble? Is it fear? Like, what is that? What is he talking about over there in verse 30, where it talks about the fact he said, "You have troubled me by making me a stench among the inhabitants of the land." When we look at the reverse, when we look at the other side, all of these people are willing to, more than willing, to go and submit themselves to whatever it is that they're doing, just so that they can be all one people. To me, I just find that really kind of interesting when we look at that, because it just seems as if when we think about Yaakov, and especially in the chapter 32, and how he was in terms of moving forward, to meet up with his brother, and the actual fear that we see in him, and the preparation that he goes through in order to kind of be sure that no conflict happens with his brother. And then over here, this terrible thing happens to his daughter. He's not about the conflict. Let's just wait and see when the brothers come back and see whatever they have to say about it. And the brothers, they're ready to do it. And then they just go do it. And after the fact, he's like, again, with this whole thing with not wanting to be in this conflict, right or wrong. And by the way, when we think about also the fact that this whole thing, Jacob is Jacob and not Israel, when in fact we saw already where we see that his name is changed. If we were to put characteristics with the name, he's being real Jacob over here, right?
Like he had a plan for that, and then kind of messed it up a little bit. Now I'm thinking too, like maybe that this little city or village or whatever it wasn't that big. If just the two brothers was able to take it down like that.
Well, all the men were incapacitated though.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that was the grand plan.
Yeah.
And the brothers saw an opportunity, like they all down. So.
All the men was messed up because they just got circumcised.
Yeah.
I mean, it was when you think about Canaan, the land of Canaan, it was like a land that was inhabited by these 7 nations. And so the ones that he named were 2 of the other ones. He named the Canaanites and he named the Perizzites. Remember, there's the Jebusites and the whatever the names of the 7. I don't have my Bible over here, but it goes through the 7 names of the nations. And so these ones were just 2 of the 7 altogether that he names over in verse 30. So even if we say that were the Hivites, who they were, where they were over there in Shechem, the Hivites, if we say that even they were this small portion of what the rest of the people were, even if we say that, you still are dealing with the fact that they're big enough to where first of all they had this kind of desirous ness about themselves. They got land that they're able to sell away to people. They mention the fact that they have available land and what have you for them to be folded in. And also thinking about Jacob, where he's not, whatever it is about them and the people that's with them or who they're associated with, it keeps him from having any thoughts of retaliation at all. So there's those things. And so when we look at this, and let me pull this back up over here. When we look at these verses over here and we think about the actions of Simeon and Levi and them getting their revenge for their sister in verse, what's the last verse? Verse 31. Let me read verse 31.
But they said, should he treat our sister like a whore?
And so again, the only thing that they were ever only thinking about was what happened to their sister. That's the only thing they was ever thinking about this whole time is revenge for their sister being taken and um, defiled in this way. Um, and so when we think about this, looking at this, when we think about what we see in all of this, to me, um, when we look at this people, um, Israel versus this was, well, it was two things. First of all, you had there was a definite cultural difference between these people. And they were this people that were just absolutely um forbidden for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't think we don't have to even say for whatever reason, because if we go back to chapter 15, look at what does Genesis 15 and 16 say.
Since then, in the fourth generation, they shall return here, for the crookedness of the Amorites is not yet complete.
Okay, so the iniquity of the Amorites. So the Amorites are another one of these people that's in the land of Canaan. So it's another people that's part of these Canaanites, and it talks about the completeness of their iniquity, as if they're having this time to go and do and be whatever it is that they are, which is um, crooked. And then there is an end to this time when they go in and they take over the people. But these people are a wicked people. They literally are a wicked people. And so when we see over here, um, these Hivites, who again are another people that are part of this land of Canaan, that the Most High just considers to be just this wicked people. So they are wicked, but when you think about it, it's really not necessarily about the wickedness of the people. Because if we look at Deuteronomy 4 and 37, let's see what that says. 37. 37 and 38. What's that say?
It says, and because he loved your fathers, therefore he chose their seed after them and brought you out of Mitzrayim with his presence and his great power to drive out before you the nations greater and stronger than you, to bring you in, to give you their land as an inheritance as it is today.
So when we look at the people in the land, yes, they were a wicked people. That is true 100%. They're definitely a wicked people. But it's not so much the fact that they're wicked, is that the Most High loved Abraham and that he chose Abraham's seed to be this set apart people. So yes, those people are wicked and they actually deserve to be misplaced. But it's more so about the Most High and His chosen than it is the wickedness of the people. So, when we think about those people, again, yes, those people are, yes, indeed, a wicked and perverse nation. But when we look throughout the short history that we have, even in Bereshit, in the book of Genesis, we see that this people is this forbidden people that Israel wasn't supposed to be part of and wasn't supposed to be connected to. So in this particular situation, when we look at Genesis 34, when we see what happened with um, Jacob's daughter is to where I think it takes it just to a whole other level because of the fact that you have this wicked people who's actually manifesting their wickedness.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was a definite manifestation of their wickedness. We was able to see like who sits up there and goes and does that, and then after the fact, tries to you like you can't make something like that right. But
Right.
in their crookedness, in their wickedness, yeah, whatever. Yeah, that's it's not a big deal.
They find, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I took her, but let's just get married now.
Like, okay.
Like it's nothing's wrong.
We're here to make it right by let's all marry. And
So I'm saying that we're able to see the manifestation of the wickedness, and that it could never work. The whole thing just it could never be. Like it can't be fixed. These people just are wicked. And then when we look back at uh Genesis and 15, where it talks about the when the wickedness is full, it's as if the Most High knows that their iniquity is just going to continue to grow and grow and grow up into a specific point where then it's time for them to be displaced. Not as if it's supposed to just Israel was never supposed to go into the land of Canaan and make those Canaanites change them.
right.
That was never the goal for them to go in there and proselytize the Canaanites.
Right.
They were just going to be this wicked people who Israel was going to go in and drive out. And so when we look at this, in its fullness, I think that the thing that we gain from this whole thing is the idea of being a separate, set apart people. And when we look at Dina, the problem with her was that she looked to this nation that she knew was a wicked nation, but she still had these longings and desires to be and know about those people. She still wanted to go out. She knew who they was. That's who they bought that was the landlord. That's who they bought the property from. They had their tent faced toward. It's like they lived like on Mount Washington at the lookout, where they was able to see the city is just right over there.
Mm-hmm.
It's just right there. They know about those people over there. And so it wasn't as if she was like, well, let me just go and find out about. She knew who they were, but she longed to actually be over there where they was and see about them, like she wanted to experience their situation. But when we think about that in terms of how we are, are we looking back at um, the world and having a desire for those things? Or is it kind of like, or is it just like repulsive thing? I'm saying that it should be this thing that we're not desiring for or longing for or wanting for, but that we're actually repulsed by. It's not a something that we want to be joined to, but something that we want to run away from. And we see, looking at her, that she wanted to go and be and know about what was going on over there, and it cost her. And so we as Israel have to get to the place of understanding that we are a different people. We're different than these other people. and we can't be joined. We can't be joined to these people. And by the way, this thing's not about, it's not about race either. Because at the end of the day, these people all probably looked exactly the same. They probably look the same. They're all in the same region. But it's a definite cultural difference. The way that they lived their lives was a whole other way. The way that they lived their life wasn't the same. I mean, when we think about just Abraham by himself, Abraham, the place that he left from, his own people that he left from, was over there living in a life that included all of this wickedness and idolatry. The place that he left from. If the place and location and the region that he was in was good for him to stay in, there wouldn't be no need for him to leave in the first place. And then we even see with Laban and his daughters taking the idols from there. So it's about the way that these people are living, that we have to pay the most attention to, and understanding that there has to be a difference. There has to be a distinction. Let me pull this up over here. Second Corinthians 6. Second Corinthians 6, 14 through 16.
But do not become unequally yoked with unbelievers. For what partnership has righteousness with lawlessness? And what fellowship has light with darkness? And what agreement has Messiah with Belial? Or what part does a believer have with an unbeliever? And the union has the dwelling place of Elohim with idols. For you are a dwelling place of the living Elohim, as Elohim has said, I shall dwell with them and walk among them, and I shall be the Elohim, and they shall be my people.
Okay, so when we think about this, we think about this idea of being unequally yoked with unbelievers. When we think about here, let's look at this here. When we look at this, this is all in the Greek. This is all I think it's like a compound word. I think it tells us to be yoked up differently. We being these people who are not, familiar with these kind of agricultural terms. If we was to take two animals and kind of bind them together, we would be kind of be yoking them together, right? So if we take this big strong ox and then yoke them together with this little baby donkey or something like this, it would be something that would be counterproductive. You have the one thing kind of pulling the other thing around or kind of misdirecting things, unless they're both these two big strong animals yoked together where they're able to go forward and do what needs to be done in terms of, or having this big thing and this little thing yoked together, they'll be sitting there probably going in circles or something, right?
Yeah.
And so this idea of being unevenly yoked with unbelievers, or partnership, like it's giving you these words that's kind of have the same kind of connotations. The idea of being yoked or bound together, partnership, fellowship, light and dark don't mix, righteousness and lawlessness don't mix. When we look at the picture of the story in terms of Dinah and these people in Shechem, and what it is that they wanted to do. They really wanted to do this this unpermissible thing, but at the end of the day, you're talking about the idea of joining lawlessness with righteousness. These people who are just bound for wickedness, um, these people who were the epitome of darkness, and we saw just in their very actions that that was the case. And so, again, thinking about this in terms of us and how we're able to get some, practical application out of this whole situation, the idea of being joined or yoked to people who are not trying to do what the Most High is trying to do is the exact thing that was going that we see over there. This thing that is, first of all, it was dealing with the people. This was this people that was prohibited in the first place, right? And so it's like unto the way how Lot was about Sodom and Gomorrah. Is where he was this righteous individual who thought it nothing just to go and dwell in the middle of these wicked people, and where it seemed as if he was almost like this gatekeeper to this wicked land, Lot, where he had some type of kind of connection to the land and this people. And so, we have to be able to get to the place where, we understand that there must be a distinction. There must be a separation between the people of the Most High and the people that are not. Because when we look, there's no real example of there being kind of this mixture between people where the wicked people, the righteous people make the wicked people righteous. It's always the opposite.
Right. Exactly.
It's always the opposite. Now, when we see what Yeshua and the idea of going out and being light, I think the difference is that you dealing with you're not necessarily dealing with nations of people, right? You're dealing with individual people,
Right.
and you're dealing with forming relationships, showing people the light and calling light out of darkness, as opposed to you know when we think about like in the times of old, whole nations. I'm saying the dynamic is a different dynamic. And so when we look over here at let me pull this up here. Let's see here. Look at chapter. What is that? Oh, that's First Corinthians 15. What does verse 33 say?
It says, "Do not be led astray. Evil company corrupts good habits."
Okay, evil company corrupts good habits. So, like it or not, when we think about the idea of light and darkness, evil company corrupts good habits. Like it or not, darkness hinders the light. Where we know that naturally it should be the other way around. But for whatever reason, evil company corrupts good habits. When we are joined to or fellowship with or make agreement with or become yoked with or become partners with those that are lawless, it don't make them righteous. It makes you become lawless. That's what happens. It don't seem like Jacob and them could have got far enough away from them people. However, whatever the proximity was, it wasn't enough because Dina was able to still look over and see them people over there and want to go over there and see what was going on with those people. And even if we say that, you know, her intentions was always just innocent, we see what happened where it just got taken out of her hands, right? When she wasn't just even to even control the situation. Let's look at Psalms 119. Psalms 119 and 63. 63. What's that say?
Says,
Stop that.
I am a companion of all who fear you and of those guarding your orders.
Okay, so this is the positive side. I'm a companion of all who fear you and those guarding your orders. I wonder if we could say the opposite of associate, companion, fellow knit together. This is the opposite of what we looked at in Second Corinthians. Second Corinthians said that there's no fellowship with light and darkness. There's no partnership with righteousness and unrighteousness. But when we look over here, this says that he's a companion with those that fear you and those guarding your orders. So this is kind of the opposite. So we're seeing the positive here. I'm a companion of all who fear you. But based on what we just looked at over there, the opposite is true. You're not to be a companion of those who don't fear you. Right? Because that would be the exact opposite of what we just looked at in terms of this idea of this being unequally yoked or bound or connected with these people who are not following after righteousness. Let's look at this Nehemiah chapter 13 and 23. 13, 23. What's that say from 23 down to 26?
It says, in those days, I saw you again who had married women of Ashdod, Ammon, Moab. And half of their children spoke the language of Ashdod and could not speak the language of Yehuda, but spoke according to the language of one or the other people. Then I contended with them and cursed them and struck some of them and pulled out their hair and made them swear by Elohim, saying, you do not give your daughters as wives to their sons, nor take their daughters for your sons or yourselves. Did not Solomon, sovereign of Israel, sin because of them? Among the many nations, there was no sovereign like him, who was beloved of his Elohim, and he made him sovereign of all Israel. Even him, foreign women caused to sin.
When we look at Solomon, who was the wisest person ever to walk the face of this earth, the chosen king of Israel. He was blessed with all wisdom. It says, even him, foreign women caused to sin. He had all wisdom, but he wasn't able to figure out how to be connected with these wicked people. He thought maybe he thought he had something. If I sit up here and I join with these other women, I could join the nations together. He wasn't able to do it with his all wisdom. He wasn't able to do it. And so, we should learn, I think, this valuable lesson that, we have to be able to, to deny, the desire to fit in to what is going on around us. Because that's what happened with when we look over at Dina, and we see her looking over and seeing this land over there, and desiring to be with these people over there. We think about, the call, to be a set apart people. When we look and see the various things that people get into, the I don't know, secular I don't know what else to say, secular life, I guess, can be appealing to our flesh. It can be a thing that can be desirable. But we have to recognize who we are in the Most High and make that separation, because He already made the separation, right? And so when we think about the fact that in Leviticus 19, let's see here, Leviticus 19 and 2. What does that say?
Preach all the congregation of the children of Israel, and say to them, be set apart, for I Yahweh, your Elohim, am set apart.
When we think about the idea of being set apart, of being separate from those that aren't connected to the Most High, it literally means that. When we think about the idea of, being set apart, we're talking about in thought, we're talking about in word, we're talking about in deed, in the sight of men. Sometimes, we might say that we're set apart from the world, but we kind of look like, the world, even though we're supposed to be set apart from the world. But if we say that we're set apart in terms of in word, we say that we're set apart, but we're doing things that kind of puts us in a category, even just in the sight of men, as being part of the world. How is that being set apart? I'm saying that is not being set apart. Because at the end of the day, if if I'm walking down the street and and somebody sees me kind of in this I don't know, some kind of uncomely fashion, all they're gonna see is me just kind of blended in with these people, and are not gonna know the difference. And so at that moment, what you did was present yourself as darkness, whatever that thing is that you're doing. And so, when we think about things that are may be permissible for us to do as far as a sin or legal purposes, right? Paul talks about the fact that all things are lawful, but not all things are what's that? What expedient? Right. So it can be lawful for me to do a thing, but not expedient. In other words, I could be doing this thing that's not a sinful thing, but could be casting a bad light on, just even in the mind of someone, about righteousness. And we have to think about these things because, if we are saying that we are the light, we have to make the light be something that is desirable, not kind of toning the light down and kind of making our light look like darkness. And I feel like that becomes a problem for people. You can't talk to me about this. There's nowhere in the Bible where it says this thing is a sin, right? Yeah. If it don't say it's a sin in the Bible, then what you go how you but we don't think about the fact that this thing that you're doing that could be detrimental to somebody else's situation. It might not be a sin, but if it's causing people to lose focus, cause people to like say for instance, drinking for instance. I've been known to have an adult beverage or two. But what I won't do is sit around with people who aren't mature in righteousness and be drinking with immature people, I would say, for those purposes. It's one thing, to the feast come around, you have it's a time of enjoyment, but people really do have problems with alcohol. Like it's a real thing where people really have problems with alcohol and just drink and drink and drink and don't have any self-control. And so for me, somebody who was at that place, who's definitely not at that place now, where I'm able to have a couple glasses of wine or a couple beers and know when it's time to stop. Where you with people who don't know when it's time to stop. So me, I'm able to take my liberty and lay it down for that person's sake. Not because it's sinful to have an adult beverage, but because I'm not going to sit up here and bring somebody else into something that they're not able to control. And so that's something that goes across the board, and doing that is putting a certain light on righteousness. Is where we're not sitting up here trying to make excuses for things that we could just take and just throw in the garbage. Because we have to be able to be set apart in thought, in word, in deed, and also in the sight of men. And not to cause somebody else to fall. If you may not have a problem with this or that, but for you to know that somebody else has a problem, and then for you to kind of put that in the way of somebody else, you just created a stumbling block for somebody instead of strengthening somebody, you're weakening someone. And so when we think about this all in the light of what we're just looking at, there was something that was desirous about that place that was over there, and that something caused Dina to want to be over there. And so we can't be in a situation where we cause those things that are of the world to be desirous. We got to tear those things down. We got to make those things be undesirous because of the fact that we are set apart. If we look at, I just got two more scriptures here. If we look at Matthew, what Yeshua said in Matthew chapter 5, Matthew chapter 5, I think it's the last verse. What's that say right there?
It says, therefore be perfect as your Father in the heavens is perfect.
That's the same thing what we just looked at. Be you set apart. Therefore be perfect as the Father in heaven is perfect. So that speaks to a level of maturity, which maturity you would think is kind of is a process. But when we think about the idea of being perfect, we have to be bought into the idea of perfection, even if we aren't necessarily walking in perfection. We have to be bought into the idea of perfection and doing whatever it takes in order to achieve that. And so sometimes we just can't be around certain people because we know that certain people are going to cause us in our imperfection to manifest in that imperfection. And so we have to take this idea of being set apart, think about it on all levels. Because when we think about this, what Yeshua is saying over here, he's calling for his people to be a manifestation of the Father. He's calling for his people to be lights in this world. And he's using this word perfect. We're talking about mature, but he's probably talking to people who aren't mature. So he's giving you some type of unattainable is he setting some unrealistic expectation on these people? Of course that's not what he's doing. But if we're able to trust in Messiah and lean on the Spirit instead of our own strength and our own understanding, it allows us to be able to walk in perfection. If I know that I'm not able to sit up here and be around this one or that one because I know all they're going to do is sit up here and be doing XYZ, and I love XYZ. My perfection means I can't be with you then. I can't put myself in situations that's going to cause me to desire to do things that are contrary to the Most High. Galatians 5:24. What that say?
It says, and those who are of Messiah have impelled the flesh with its passions and the desires.
And 25 and 26.
Okay. It says, if we live in the Spirit, let us also walk in the Spirit. Let us not become conceited, provoking one another, envying one another.
Okay, so when we think about this, it's interesting when we think about this over here. Those who are of Messiah have impaled, this probably says crucified in the King James, the flesh with its passions and the desires. So again, when we say that we are going to be followers of Messiah, when we make Messiah our master, we already did this, but we have to continue in this. We have to continue in this thing. Think about again. We think about back to Genesis when we're looking at the fact that Jacob set up his altar. He set up his altar unto the Most High. It was there, acknowledging the Most High as his mighty Elohim, but yet and still in the face of this land. And so we have to be able to get to the place where we're making these clear distinctions between us and the world. Where we say that Yeshua is our master, and then but we're not putting these things of the world in our face to sit up here. We set traps and things for our own selves because we're not making that clear distinction between the world and the Most High and what He would have for His people. And so we have to be able to look and take lessons from what we see over here in the Torah portion, in that we can't have we have to do what we have to do in order to not have the world be this apple that's dangled in front of our faces, where we sit up here trying to chase after these things. Because when we see this verse over in Galatians, where it talks about this over here, we have impaled already the flesh with its desires and its affections. The things that we long after, the things that we desire after, the things that we are passionate about can't be, these things are connected to the flesh. If we walk in the Spirit, if we live in the Spirit, let us also walk in the Spirit. Right? So these two things don't correspond with each other. We can't sit up here and say, well, we're this Spirit-led individuals, but our passions and desires all lie in these worldly things and worldly affairs. If we say that Messiah is if we say that we're of Messiah, right, then we should have already killed the flesh already. So again, not to say that we have been perfected, but we're not putting ourselves in these situations where we're able to be overtaken by these things that we already know that we like, that our flesh likes. Right? You got to be bought into the process, right? And I think that's where people get messed up at, is where you not really bought into the process, right? You got to understand that you have to be able to make provisions for yourself to be able to be set apart because of the fact that you're not perfect. People quick to say, nobody's perfect. But ain't nobody really quick to talk about what you doing in order to make your life kind of easier, where you don't have these things that are tempting you, in pulling you back into the situations. If I know that all my people, all they do is get into all of this stuff that I know I can't be doing, then you're not gonna be the one that sit up here and turn your whole everybody. They just gonna keep you down. You're not gonna lift them up. You got to do like little secret missions and just take one out at a time. We think about, I mean, if we can turn Simeon and Levi's things, what they did, into something, there was some thought that went into the way that they was able to conquer the evil nation. And the two of them being able to take out the whole of the nation wasn't about them just going head on with the nation. There was strategy involved in that. And so we got to think about our battle in that same way, is that we individuals can't just go and just take out a whole nation. You got to just take them out one at a time. If it's only two of them, that's what they did. They took them out one at a time. They was incapacitated, right? But they did it one at a time, right? Because of the fact that, again, we have to kind of have that understanding that we are a set apart nation, right? You've made, if you say that you're a follower of Messiah, you've made a confession and profession of who your master is. And so when we do that, we, as it says in Galatians, we're killing off those old desires, and we're not putting ourselves in situations where those desires can overtake us, knowing that they will, because of the fact of us not being to our fullness. So again, we have to think about and understand this separation that is necessary, because again, just in closing, we think about the Torah portion, the thought of these people that was in the land of Shechem. These people, it had to have been ingrained in them, from before they was even came on the scene, that these people was a wicked people. It had to have been. She knew who was over there, but she still went over there. Mm-hmm. She still put herself in a situation where she was able to be overtaken by wickedness. And so we have to be able to get to the place where we're using wisdom in our actions and not allowing ourselves to be overtaken by wickedness by putting ourselves in certain situations, and being able to surround ourselves and join ourselves and actually be connected to those that are in righteousness and not unrighteousness. Because again, we don't see no examples in the scripture except for Yeshua himself being able to walk and move in the midst of those that are not about this life. Messiah changing people's hearts out here. We just out here doing his work to the best of our abilities. Okay, so that being said, you anything to add to the situation?
I have a question.
Yes.
Is desiring to buy a home and have good credit as well as having a business, are those things considered desiring-worthy things?
Well, I'm saying that we are in this world, but we're not of this world, right? And so if you're every waking moment, you're trying to figure out how to do those things, then yeah. Yeshua said, if you seek after righteousness, you hunger and thirst after righteousness. You seek after righteousness, and then all these things, you know, basic human provisions will be added to you. So I'm saying if you spending every waking moment trying to figure out how you supposed to get your money right, and that's all you ever thinking about, then that's wicked. Not to say that you can't think about those things, because you must think about it every day. I sit up here at the same time every day. I get up and I go to work because I gotta make money. I gotta feed these. I gotta feed you. You eat up the whole house over here, right? But that's not the thing. What is it that's motivating you? Is it that desire to go out here and get things? If that's what's motivating you, then that's wrong. But if your motivation is the Most High, if He's your motivation, right, and you just out here, Paul talks about the fact that when you sit up here and you go and you do these things, the things that you do, you're doing it as unto the Father. So when I'm out here doing my work, I'm doing it unto the Most High. I'm not just sitting up here doing anything I could do in order to get by. I'm doing these things as if I'm doing it for the Father. And then when you move in that way, then you'll always be blessed. So we can't sit up here and act like we so spiritual that we can't think about regular things, because we got to think about these things. But what's your motivation? Motivation got to be the Most High. I'm sitting up here. It's an ends to a mean. I'm going to the place. I'm not forming no covenants with these people. If they want to sit up here and say you got to break the Sabbath or you fired, I'm gonna say, get my money. Yeah, because my obligation is to the Almighty. I'm out here working every day, so y'all can sit up here and do all the stuff that y'all do, right? And so it's just about perspective and where's your focus. We got to live in this world. We in the world. What you saying? Oh, yeah, yeah, very good. Okay, that being said, all right, so we just want to remember, just as kinds of parting thoughts, we want to remember that this world out here is indeed wicked, right? And we can't be desiring after the world and its trappings, right? Because as always, we can't fix the world. The world can't be fixed, right? It's people out there that's the Most Highs, and we can go out there and we can find them. But the world gonna burn. You know what I'm saying? The world gonna burn. He got some people out there that don't know that they his people, and we gotta let them know that. But this world out here, we can't be desirous of that world, because the world is wicked and it can't be changed. We live in this wicked nation, and it is what it is. So I saw somebody posted talking about, every president or congressperson should be a believer in Messiah. For what? This is a wicked nation. What's that? You know what I mean? These people, we can't expect righteousness from this wicked place that we live in. I don't expect it. I expect what I get. They give me exactly what I think they're supposed to give me. I can't look to them for to be a standard of righteousness. I don't look to them for that. I expect for them to be wicked.
Right.
If they was righteous, I probably have to reevaluate what righteousness is, because I can't trust. You know what I mean?
That's not what
No. So we just have to be, we have to be kind of secure in the fact that we are different. We not like these other people. The only way, the only way that we could be like these other people is for them to be like us. That's the only way we can come together, right? And so, we just have to be kind of secure in the idea of being different and not being desirous, of the world. Okay, so all right. So that being said, I guess we're gonna go ahead and be done for now. And y'all willing, we will be back on next Shabbat. All right.